All right. Once again, hello, welcome to well, I guess this is technically another lectures episode, but this time we've got the trophy chasers. We're going to be talking about the five amazing players, greatest players that have never won in the LCS era or won a world championship. So this includes MSI, any kind of Riot event where we're looking at pretty much just those four. If you like LCS,
Yeah.
EU, LCK, those kind of, and then Worlds MSI. Anything outside of that, IEMs, IPLs, those count.
Rift Rivals.
Those count as wins, but those don't count as trophies. Domestically, people tend to not consider them. They're pushed to the side a lot, despite being relatively respectable outside. They're considered circuit, and Riot doesn't like circuit, right? So anyone that's won those, unfortunately, and somehow fortunately, you get on this list, which is kind of a win in its own way, right? So
it's the real list you want to be on.
Yeah. So we've been sitting here talking about a handful of players, because there's actually, believe it or not, just through all the greatest players in League of Legends, a lot of them have actually won, even at least once. So this became that there's notable players, but then you go through all their wins and you're like, oh, hang on, wait, they won once, but that's like ruined my plan. I hate you, Smeb. Why did you win? Or someday, or honestly, most of the people on KT, because notable org for losing, they actually won. That's a false narrative that I've been living by, and I don't like that. You want to get into number 5? While I sit over here being upset about not being able to put KT on my list.
Yeah, sure. So the number 5 we agreed with after looking at all the major regions and just discussing the people who have never won is Alex Ich.
Yeah.
So the reasons why Alex Ich are on this list, let's first start where he came from. So Alex Ich was an M5 mid laner. He is known for his hyper-aggressive style. He played since season 1, but in season 2 he was really known for
2011, so season 1. Ooh.
Yeah, 2011. But he's really known for that Moscow 5 legendary roster with Darien in the top lane, Diamond Prox in the jungle, him in the middle lane, AD carry Genja, and support Gosu Pepper or Edward, as more people would know him as. He was known for incredible plays on champions like Kha'Zix mid or Evelynn mid, and he was one of the few Western mid laners, and I know it's hard to believe even in this day and age, mid laners to really take it to the Koreans. He was able to completely style on some Korean mid laners in international tournaments, which even to this day, we don't have a lot of people who can say that. So that's why we think he's one of the greats.
Yeah, no, I think this guy was, from Europe, you definitely you'd think about, greatest EU teams, and obviously Fnatic is one of them, and G2 now is considered one of the best, but before G2 and even before Alliance, when they won and were meant to be a super team, there was just like Gambit and CLG EU, and CLG EU haven't been listed since 2012 or maybe 2013. They had to rebrand to Evil Geniuses, that's right. So they haven't been mentioned since 2012, and to be fair, rightfully so, because Froggen even was their only notable member that went on to do anything in the end. Sorry, Yellow Pete, but you're not. Unfortunately, you're not bringing in those fat W's anymore, so nobody remembered you. And Gambit, Moscow 5 were probably, for my money, the greatest European team. Maybe if G2 do really well this year, then you considered probably G2 were the best Western team that we've had, and European for sure. But before this G2 roster really makes a statement, this Gambit team were insane. And this is looking at this is mostly down to Alex Ich. I'd argue obviously he has Diamond Prox helping him out, but it's just these two guys with Darien, a guy that literally his meme value was his biggest strength, is that he played Warwick top lane before Warwick got reworked and managed to get it banned in a game. That was his big notable thing. Genja in AD carry, another person that his biggest strength was that he was a meme. He was a memer, and he was playing Lucian first item GA, like, which is what you like in a competitive game, in an LCS game. He buys GA first item and he won. What? Like, that's what you queue up for solo queue, and you're like, Eddie Carey goes, oh, hang on, I'm stacking armor, first item. You just FF at 15.
I would have to say he probably helped contribute to the toxicity in EOS back in the day.
Oh, 100%. Born and bred. The it's not even just general, I was going to say racial tensions in EU, because there's so many. It's not great. I promise you. EU solo queue is the worst. I hate it. It's not just toxicity. It's a war out here.
Just come to the NA retirement home. We'll welcome you.
Wish. Give me that. Give me the big money. But Alex H, for all it's worth, was like the star of this team. Diamond Prox might have reinvented the jungle role, but he couldn't have done what he did on counter jungling without a mid laner that pressured and did what he did for him. So Alex H, notably kind of low down on this list for the reasons that Gambit won a lot, but they came into 2013 when the LCS era started and they didn't actually look as strong as they used to. This was notably based on their side lanes now looking weak. Alex H still popping off, picking Kha'Zix mid, just like a ruffle stomping, literally like an old ass term.
Kills and shit like that.
Dude did not care. And then, you know, he goes away for a little bit, and now every once in a while, when it's a full moon, he comes out and he boosts an NA Challenger team into the NALCS for some big money, and then he rides off into the sunset again to go have a wife and kids.
Yeah,
definitely, arguably, well, one of the best players ever, but never won an LCS, never won Worlds. Was pretty close a handful of times. Season 2 Worlds, they placed, what was it, fourth, but that was based on, obviously there's the whole drama where the envelope got swapped around, and if the envelope wasn't swapped, then they would have got placed against, who was it? Oh my god, I've got it right here somewhere. I gotta find the season 2 Worlds thing.
It was Frost then, because that's the other side of the bracket.
Why is it not here? It's because it was called something different, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was DreamHack. It was DreamHack Summer 2012. That was the second Worlds, I believe.
I think it's a season 2 World Championship. So
then,
it wasn't called DreamHack anymore. DreamHack was season 1.
Then let me find season 2 Worlds really quick.
Yeah. While you're looking that up, and also during that time, for the viewers who didn't see Worlds or weren't there for season 2, like Moscow 5 came into this tournament, at least in the Western world, as one of the favorites. Like, yeah, there were like teams like Azubu Frost or like Najin Black Sword, and obviously TPA won in the end. But before all of this happened, everyone was thinking Moscow 5 was a clear favorite. They were insane in the international tournaments. They had already won over Koreans before then. Alex Ich notably has taken down teams like, they took down the old Blaze team, so they took down Azubu Blaze, I think they were at the time, at an MLG. Yeah. Yep. And like this was like pretty unheard of back in the day. Like, you know, Koreans were already starting to go on the up and up, but
pretty much
teams like Moscow 5 couldn't care.
Instantly as Korea came in, you go, oh well, they've been around, you know, they're kind of behind for a while, but Korean players were playing on NA in season 1 on the solo queue ladder, and players were like, oh god, they're like, this dude's like on like 100 ping and he's just kicking my ass. And then obviously Korea is just known for its esports infrastructure in general. Like, the esports is big for them, so lots of StarCraft pros were coming in straight away. Teams, there was already money put in, even if it's small amounts compared to NA, it was money. And then you're like, oh well, guess what, now we're just like that, you show up at a tournament and clip clap, everyone's trash, you know, except for Alex H, who's like, hey man, like, let me dumpster you around for a little bit. And then EU teams, NA teams couldn't do that for several years afterwards, you know. Like, Korea was like, uh-oh, this guy's like kicking our ass, maybe we should create Faker in a lab and then we'll be good. But it was Azubu Frost that they would have been against, and obviously Azubu Frost were the team. They lost to Taipei Assassins at that Worlds, who then went to win. But I believe it was suggested that they could have been, or was it CLG EU that they would have ended up fighting?
Maybe because it was quarterfinals.
Yeah, it
And
was some,
CLGEU went against World Elite instead, and then
yeah,
that best of 5, best of 3 happened.
Yeah, Jesus Christ, that was a. People don't talk
That's
about
why we have
the
Silver Scrapes, boys.
Silver Scrapes live is great as well. It's big mood.
Yeah.
But yeah, either way,
Hours of that.
So Alex Ich, I think no one's really going to contest on that, no matter how much we talk about it. No one, I don't think that there's many people out there being like, oh my god, like if you haven't heard of him, just go look up some gameplay. Just like there's millions of videos out there talking about how this guy was nuts.
Yeah, and like keeping in mind, like while we said he didn't win Worlds Season 2 and they were the favorites, it's not like they got stomped in the semifinals against Taipei Assassins, the eventual winners. They actually kind of trolled that match. Like, let's be real, they picked like Zillion for the first time mid, and I think they looked down on their opponents there because they lost 2-1 because there was only best of 3s back then in the playoffs. But they arguably looked like at least a comparable team to TPA, and TPA was like much better than CJ Frost. So I think that at the very least they were a top 2 team at that Worlds.
Oh, for sure.
And they just kept trolling to the end.
And of course, this is the same. This is the same Moscow 5 that went to IPL 5 as well, which was like just a crazy stacked international tournament where they did really good in the standings as well.
Yep, they got top 4.
Yeah, against TPA again. Ironically,
against TPA again.
TPA actually got the better half of them this time, but TPA coming off the Worlds win, and again, Azubu Blaze were there, World Elite were there. When World Elite then went on, this was the World Elite that had Messiah and Wei Zhao, and were just fantastic. So
yep, and Fnatic was there too.
Losing to good teams still makes you a good player. Keep that in mind.
Yep. Also to keep in mind, one of the other criteria we're using is we'll heavily weigh the peak performance of this player. So like the best that we've ever seen of this player, preferably like during the LCS era, but we will put a little bit of weight onto pre-LCS era because he was still a player back then.
Yeah.
And so Alex just looked amazing on both eras. So
it's important to think that players eventually fall off if they don't win for a long time and they're in the league or they're in the scene for a long time. Of course, they're gonna look a little, or at least it's a reasonable assumption to say, oh well, they're really weak now. They were really bad at the end of their career, but that's not always the case. You just gotta actually pay a lot of attention. Which, I mean, to be fair, who the hell's paying attention to Alex H when he's on Renegades? No one, and no one can blame you. But he was still good on Renegades. I promise you that.
Yes, he was still good on Renegades, and like he was like he was in a marriage, like he had the marriage buff like ambition, but
oh no, I didn't think the best LCS player, the best Worlds players, the best League of Legends players, they're all married. I'll be right back, guys. I'm gonna go win Worlds and get married right now.
Exactly. So you want to move on to the next one?
So in our prestigious 4th spot is it's Team Liquid, and no, it is actually
my heart.
Just like I just flamed Team Liquid. Our 4th player is actually Flame himself, Lord and Savior of top lane, as Thorin would call him. I think that the reason that we would put Flame here is not. I think that Flame potentially could be higher up on this list. The problem is because he's a Korean player, he was playing in a Korean league with dominant Koreans all the time, and therefore obviously not winning when you're looking at the likes of Reapered and Faker and Macnoon back then, and just Ryu and so many fantastic Korean players. He's maybe the only one that didn't win, but also there's like a big middle part of his career that's a little bit grey and a little bit like, I don't, like, he wasn't awful, but like he wasn't Flame almost anymore. But he then went back to form a little bit later, so it's fair to say that he could be you could argue that he's above our 3rd and 2nd picks, but we've thought that 4th was a reasonable place. I mean, this guy is one of the few players that has something named after him in the Flame Horizon, having 100 CS above your opponent. Now think about that for just a second, because this was pre-TP era as well, before you're making loads of TP plays. Before Mata figured out that TP was a a summoner spell that top laners should be using, and made every top laner in the world take it. He's taking Ignite in lane, he's killing his laner, and then he's out CSing him by 100 CS. That's 6. You're getting 6 minions. You get what, 10 CS a
6
minute?
to 7, yeah.
Because
10 per minute if you're good.
It's 6 minions a wave, and I think you get 2 waves, just 2 waves in a minute-ish, something like that.
Yeah,
so,
a little less than 2, so yeah.
So you're looking at like 10 CS a minute, and this guy is 100 CS above. You see it in games in competitive still now sometimes, given through the conditions of making TP plays, or like a top laner might get camped, and then they have to make a TP play to like obtain Dragon. But the game back then, Dragon wasn't so important. Baron didn't really spawn until, well, I think Baron spawned earlier at 16, but even then, Baron players weren't as often. The objective play and the general macro of the games and understanding was so less. This was strictly on lane dominance. He was just better at like microing the characters than most Korean top laners, which would make him the best top laner in the world at like the most integral points of his career. So and yet he hasn't won anything, at least not of note. I'm gonna bring up, he has quite a few splits.
He's
in
got
NA.
an IEM and like a WCG, you know.
Some splits in NA that weren't looking too hot.
Yeah. There is a little asterisk that we want to put in case anyone wants to do like a fact check later on. He did technically win an LPL playoff in 2015 on Chaogu, or on LGD, but he was the sub. Acorn played pretty much most of the matches in the playoffs, so I find it hard to put him as the winner of that, just as a sub player for LGD.
It's kind of one of the reasons we might have him low down, is that we think it's deserving of like a win, right? And you could argue behind the scenes there's so much that he could have been doing to help Acorn be nuts, but Acorn was already a nuts player going in. Acorn played the series. He had like Imp and Godvi. That team was probably going to win anyway. It's like hard to say. Substitute positions, it's a little awkward because then you're running out of players even more, because then you would consider players that played as like a coach, and that's not fair, right? You're not going to consider a coach, so you probably shouldn't consider a substitute either, because he didn't play that often in the regular season either. This was the time where LGD had Flame, and most people are sitting there like, when are you going to play Flame? When are you going to play Flame? Yeah. I think he played 2 games in the regular season. I think it was 2.
He played a few games, but he also played 2 games at Worlds when they were already out. So
that's
3 games at
even
Worlds.
Worse. That's right. They played him. Oh god, yeah.
They were like, we're 0-3, good luck, and he went 2-1. So I mean, Flame showed his worth at Worlds that year. It's just it didn't matter anymore.
Unfortunate.
I mean, even in the modern era, you see Flame is playing at times over Nuguri Damwon Gaming when he went over there, and he's that veteran talent still. He shows that he's super solid. He can still dominate lanes once in a while. And like Flame, I think the reason why we have him on the list over Alex Ich here is especially the reason that while Alex Ich was an amazing individual talent, he didn't create like as much of a lasting impact in the way we play League of Legends in the top lane from then on. Like, if you ever think to yourself, like, why is this Riven player just like between 2 turrets, and like why are they like so aggressive and like trying to snowball all the time and like, be like the super carry, right? Why do they hate tank meta? Flame is a large part of the reason why. I wouldn't say he's the father top lane, because there's still like MacNoon and Reaper of that era. But he's definitely one of those people who like influence the idea of like, I want to stomp my top lane. I'm gonna destroy them, and like I'm gonna push up there with my Ignite. And they're like, no, take TP, be safe. Nah.
He's on the Mount Rushmore of top laners for sure.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, and he did this in Korea, like while MacNoon was still a player, and while like players like Reaper were. Actually, Reaper Reaper was still around. He was on SKT T1 number 1.
Was it 1? Was it 1 and 2 before it was?
It was
KNS?
number 1 and 2. It was still 1 and 2 because KNS hadn't existed yet. Yeah,
it's very confused. That's
because Baker was on SKT number 2 and Reaper was on number 1. They built it around Reaper
and then
because he was supposed to be the superstar. Yeah,
it's
Bang was on us, and
why it's so confusing.
Bang. Spoiler alert: Bang is not on this list though.
Oh yeah. Wow.
Sorry, Bang fans.
World champion. Not on. You couldn't. Unfortunately, Bang. I wish Bang was on this list. I wish he didn't win. My bias.
But unfortunately, him winning makes it so he can't make it to our list. So sometimes maybe Flame actually played the long game this whole time.
He wanted to be here. He's like, you know what? I think I want to be remembered as one of the greats that never won.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Yes. So like,
I know that
for the most part.
I know. Go ahead.
Also keep in mind that like to Flame Horizon back in the day, like you didn't usually have like you had like this is pro play, so like there are junglers still there, and like the idea of like freezing forever or like just like pushing them off the wave and like making the other top laner useless was like not a very common idea back then, and like we still use those mechanics to this day.
Yeah,
so
there's a lot that like
Flame's one of those pioneers.
Wouldn't be considered where you go, oh well, like players know how to break freeze more often now. Players are just way more naturally knowledgeable. Him having the knowledge how to even freeze a lane and know that people aren't going to play very well against it, and be able to find these CS advantages and dumpster laners and know that he's going to be items up, so of course he's going to look so strong. That's unbelievably impressive at that level, because most players in pro should just be able to adapt after that. After 1 or 2 games, they go, all right, Flame, that's what Flame does, so let's play around that. And they never could. They never could. He just, every time he's got your number. He's probably, I was going to say probably the most dominant top laner we've ever seen in terms of, like, he might not have a record, but like in a solo lane matchup, but that might not be true when I think about maybe Smeb. But he's definitely very, very, very up there. If we're talking, when we consider the caveat of ones that haven't won.
Yeah,
then
of the ones that haven't won, he's
then
definitely
of course
up
he
there.
looks like the best. Moving towards players that you might not consider the best is our number 3 spot, because I think a lot of people might be very surprised about this one, and I'm not, off the basis that I've paid a little bit of attention to his career path, and I think the reason people might be surprised is because they haven't paid attention. And that's rightfully so, because he's actually played his entire career in China. Doinby, formerly of Gaju Reapers, as people might remember him, because I think that was the last time he was seen internationally. Now on Phoenix Plus, is that it?
Fun Plus Phoenix, FPX.
Yeah, Fun Plus Phoenix.
Yeah, I don't know why they thought that was a good name. I thought Rogue Warriors was a much better name than that, and so... Yeah, he was on Chaogu, JDG, and New Beef briefly, and Rogue Warriors, and then now he's on FPX, who won the regular season,
but lost in playoffs.
The recent LPL.
Actually lost the best of 5 to the 8th seed. Boy, it was Imp on that team, to be fair.
Oh well, actually no, he lost to TOP this time around.
Did they?
Yeah, they might have lost to JDG in the regular season, but during the playoffs they lost to TOP and they got 3rd place.
I thought that...
Yeah, because the other side of the bracket, it was JDG.
Wait, who did...
JDG beat up RNG.
Oh, damn. Oh, yeah, because then they beat Top afterwards, right?
Yeah,
okay. That's right. So, team kind of choked, but Doinby, actually a fantastic player, if you've watched him play. Mm-hmm. But, obviously, I mean, looking at the teams that he's been on, is the highlight. Well, the highlight, not for his career, but the highlight of this, because his side laners, not so great almost ever. His junglers haven't been that bad. I mean, he had Clid, who's now currently on SKT, when Clid was in China, but that was before Clid really popped off. But then again, he had Mouse for a while, and Mouse is just...
He had like trash. V and TNT and TCT and TCT
were... I don't want to say... I mean, I don't want to say the T in their name stands for trash, and it's there twice for a reason, but you never seen them again after 2015, so, you know.
I mean, you might know TCT from back when he was known as Moore. the support player for LMQ, but like I wouldn't say that this is like a world class talent
You
support.
know that
So
when pro players change their name, it's usually because they're trying to get rid of a bad reputation. God V, Wayless, Promise Q, more. So not
yeah,
was he good? Maybe not one of the greatest players, but Doinby,
yeah.
man's hard carrying his team to some success. Definitely like one of the best Korean players that went straight. I mean, he didn't even play in LCK. He went straight to China from Korean solo queue, and he teared that thing up every time. Like the dude looks nuts every single time he plays.
The,
Or not
I
every
mean, at
single
this
time, but
point, we're just
every.
like referring to it as like the Doinby effect. Like he goes to a team, and no matter what team it is, no matter who's on his roster, he always makes them a playoff contender. He always makes elevates his team. Like shot calling is hard to quantify, but if you ever watch the voice clips of like the voice comms, this man's like controlling everything. He's actually the mastermind of every team he's basically on. He's been on teams with like Mouse and like Kilowatt, and this year he actually I think finally has a good team, but he always manages to get them really high up in the placements. He makes them relevant and exciting to watch. Last year at Rift Trials, I think he took down Kingzone, was it, in the deciding match when LCK was up 2-1 against LPL. And he just like he played Kled mid. He was like, I don't give a fuck. No one plays Kled mid. I'm just gonna play Kled mid. I'm gonna run down Prey on Lucian, I think it was. And I'm just gonna run him down with Kled from across the map over and over and over until we win this game. This man is
win.
a madman. He's the reason why you see Rise players take Aftershock and Righteous Glory. He even managed to get a quadra kill on Kassadin with Righteous Glory. Like he does not care what builds are.
Jesus Christ.
Back in 2017 or 16, he's a Victor main. Well, not a Victor main. He plays everything, but he's known for his Victor. He was the guy who was like, I'm going to go tank Victor. I'm going to build Iceborne Gauntlet, and I'm going to go like whatever I want to build, and everyone else follows him after he starts building them. So, I mean, this guy's, his dark technologies, like, if you see some random ass build, there's actually a high chance that it's going to be played in pro play recently. And that's why you're like building your Righteous Glory Rises.
I think that the easiest
it still doesn't sound like it.
It doesn't sound actually real. Like it's like I get I get the theory, but then you're like, oh yeah, there's like loads of theories that should be really full health Soraka should be great. Like no, not at all. That's trash. What are you talking about? Like literally can't. Like why would
you get the Warmox though?
Oh yeah, let's get. he's very much. I would liken him to China's Froggen. Maybe not in play style, but in terms of like career, where he was really good. He's very notable as a mid laner and somebody that plays a lot, but always ends up on a bad team and manages to turn a bad team. He's surrounded by players that would be on a bad team if he wasn't there, and he manages to turn that into some moderate level of success because he's such a star player. But he's also very good at like helping out his players and being like, all right, like we'll get better. This team's been upped just by his stock being on the team, and then he leaves that team, and eventually all those players go on to do nothing, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, usually you've never heard of V again, and Swift was good for a little while, but you haven't heard of him doing anything after he leaves. And one of the reasons I think we have him so high on our list above players like Flame or Alexich is also because his performance has been just growing and growing. Like when he joined as like a rookie in 2015 or 16, he was really good still. They were still doing well on Chaogu. Like Chaogu was on the map because of him and as well as like other players. But he continues to perform at the highest level. Even this split, like he was super, what is it? We always call him super carry Doinby or whatever in LPL. And this man just continues to excel. He gathers more and more, like he is very well respected amongst analysts in other regions. If you've ever watched LPL, like Doinby would be considered a top 3 mid laner in terms of top 3 or top 4 mechanically in LPL, but that's like behind the likes of like Rookie or Knight or like maybe you could say Xiaohu or Yagao.
I mean,
but he
right
always performs. Yeah, he always performs at such a high level. He like the problem we have with like players like Flame, for example, is like there were times in Flame's career where he couldn't adapt to changes in the meta. Like we were talking about how he was insane with Ignite in top lane, how he pioneered like taking advantage of the lane. But he also was taking Ignite when TP was meta, and he was also resistant to like learning the new champions for a while. Obviously, he still got into it. Like we've seen him on FlyQuest and Immortals, and he's looked good. But there were definitely lower periods that, while aren't as important as the peaks of Flames play, were also like glaring enough that we can acknowledge that this is part of the player as a package.
Yeah.
So
No, of course. And I mean, not all of like the players on this list where you go, oh well, they had like a bit of bad time. Like, oh, how is Flame on this list then? If he like played an NA and he looked bad, but you're like, no, you can't always. This list isn't about everyone that ever came second ever, because that's not even close to how rational. Like, how would you even make a list on that? Huh? That just wouldn't happen. You couldn't. Yeah. It'd be so goddamn long and or incoherent and bad. I do think one of the main another reason you could consider him like high on this list is because of just his regular season placements and playoff placements. He had, ironically, he's actually always been like first or second in the regular season, and coming into playoffs, second, third. Like, it's not like he's basically proven that he is a good player and brings his team to runner-up status all the time. He just needs. We're not sure if it's his edge that needs something, or maybe a team around him. Because we've yet to see. Well, I guess now we've yet to see him on a good team. He's finally got a good team. They just happen to get upset.
So they were looking really strong throughout this season. I mean, they ended 13-2 in a really stacked LPL season. So like, while IG might be the representative for MSI, like there is definitely a universe where Doinby would be carrying that flag, and it would have been really nice to see him surprise everyone with his play, because Doinby needs an international appearance.
Oh, 100%.
He really, it's coming.
He has had them in the past, but I think he's long overdue for a one where he actually is in now in the form that he's in, because he was definitely overshadowed previously, being like the third place Chinese seed, and people like really underrating him, and then obviously him doing well and people being like, oh wow, this guy's pretty good, and then the team disappears, so now you don't talk about him again next year.
Yeah, for sure. But so his consistency is insane. His shot calling is like actually like is observable. Like, he is a super team captain. Like, of all the players on this list, except maybe one, you could argue he probably has the most impact in elevating his teammates. Like, Alexic carries his teammates hard, but this guy's like
make his team.
This guy's like making them better players too. Yeah, Alexic was like, you guys can go troll. I'll do the work. But Doinby is insane. Also, he like speaks native Chinese. Like, this isn't like like really a thing, but he actually speaks the native language there too. So he's like shot calling in Chinese as a Korean. So like it's kind of insane. He just does everything.
It certainly helps. I mean, it's kind of why a lot of the Korean players went over and they stayed there for so long, is because they've invested at that point to like they might as well just be Chinese players, and they'll always do probably a little better than they would have done in LCK, and then maybe actually be able to win from that. So it's pretty smart.
Yeah, I mean, like, you look at some of the NA imports and they still haven't learned English yet, and it's like
kind of yikes.
It's not easy to learn another language. So come on, Impact, you can do this.
I believe Impact World Champion, come back to me.
Yeah.
But not
MSI champion. It's coming up next week.
Yeah, dude. I'm not sure Impact's ready for the Nautilus was buffed. Maybe he's ready for the MSI.
Nautilus was buffed.
He's ready for
the tank. Ornn is good too. I mean, the tanks are back.
But speaking of somebody that hates the fact that the tank patch is coming out,
oh boy,
but who will not be at MSI, unfortunately, is our number 2 spot, which we are. I'm begrudgingly, yet somehow, I understand, and in my own brain, it's kind of my own fault, because I've rationalized this, despite that EU pride would suggest that this should be the number one pick for me, and the definitely a contender that I think a lot of people should see coming. If you click the video, then you should be like, when is this guy going to appear on the list? It's Forgiven. Forgiven is, without note of the first person in our number 1 spot, I could confidently say, like, in a room of people that watch League of Legends, Forgiven is the greatest player that's never won anything, and everyone would go, yes, shut up, stop talking about League of Legends. But Forgiven is like just the superstar AD carry, probably the best Western AD carry we've seen. Yes, double lift, he's better than you. Try and 1v1 him.
Sorry, Reckless. Not this
Not
time.
even sorry, Reckless. Shut up, Reckless. Get out the door. The door's over there. You can see it. Get out. Leave, because you're not good. to put it lightly. Unfair. Reckless is alright, but alright isn't gonna
Reckless is good.
Alright isn't gonna make up for the fact that Forgiven is this AD carry that you watch him play. He's playing like, I mean, I'm pretty confident he was playing Lucian in a meta where it wasn't even like strong, and he's like weaving in and out of team fights, dodging skill shots by like important skill shots by the minimalist amount. He plays, I believe it's like peak League of Legends or whatever the term the pro players use.
Yeah,
for
peak League of Legends is what I would call it.
For whatever the term is for, he just maximizes the champion to the most efficiency. And granted, the AD carry role in terms of the champions aren't necessarily as mechanically intensive as mid lane or top lane, but being able to position to such an excellent degree in the West as a Western player is, I think, okay, so the breakdown in my mind is this. You look at team fights in the West and you go, wow, like if you're just an average player, you go, oh wow, that was a messy team fight, that was kind of cool, team fights are fun. Then you go watch LCK and you look at their team fights and you go, wow, that was really conservative. Every team fight is drawn out and skill shots are hit the exact way they're supposed to. Things aren't wasted. And then you go to LPL and you go, wow, what a messy team fight. Except it's not the same as the Western's messy team fight because people are still hitting everything, but things are like, so it's just like instantly like
very fluid. It's
the way that they team fight in the East and the way that we team fight in the West is the biggest, probably the biggest skill difference in the West versus East like skill gap, because we've been copying Korean macro for so long, and it's like, oh well, don't play League of Legends like the Koreans because then you'll never beat them. But that's not necessarily true, I would argue, as much as it is. You literally have to be able to team fight to the level these guys do, because they hold all of their abilities correctly, so on and so forth. And so Forgiven's playing in a region where things aren't played like to the maximum level, yet you watch him team fight against an EU team and he dumpsters them, and then he goes to international tournaments, which he's definitely been to a handful on like H2K, and he plays against Korean teams, and he's just like, yeah, so I don't like the adaptation from understanding that the enemy team will do the right thing as opposed to knowing that they're going to do the wrong, like his understanding of what's going to happen from each player, his ability to read the scenarios and position off that, as opposed to, it's not like some kind of autopilot where he's just nuts and goes, oh, that's where Varus throws out the Q or the ult. It's very specific to each player. Some players can't play Varus for shit, but like he can pick up on that, and then he's just phenomenal in lane, ridiculous in team fights. Everyone's hyping him now that he's a free agent and definitely probably coming back for summer in LAC, and rightfully so, because he's a fantastic player. And yeah, I mean, like, I think you'd be hard pressed to find anyone that doesn't think Forgiven should have won something by now, because he's been on relatively good teams, but they've definitely had a lot of growing pains, and that might be due to his ability to work in a team.
His personality is not part of the ranking here as much.
Definitely been like, oh well, why aren't you coming bot lane? And like, I'm playing 1v9 right now. Like, oh, why isn't my jungler here? So I should 2v9, and then his bot lane, he's like, support's like, excuse me, I'm in lane with you. He's like, shut up, I'm trying to lane right now. That kind of, maybe that attitude is what's pulled him down a little bit from finding that success domestically. But he's definitely, when you watch him size up against Korean teams or Chinese teams, he's not a player where you go, oh, he's gonna match up against Uzi, he's definitely gonna lose lane. No. Oh, he's gonna, like, if you give me a Forgiven, I'd probably say Vanda's his best support that he's played with. So, you give me a Forgiven Vanda lane against like Prey Gorilla or Deft. Who did Deft play with Mata last before Mata went to SKT? Or Mad
They
Life?
played 2017 and 2018 together, because they played 2 years as that KT roster lineup without winning.
Yeah, so
until they won.
So I'm not afraid of like Forgiven Vanda versus Def Mata, even though Mata would be the better support. I still give, like, Forgiven is not gonna lose that lane in terms of, there's no way I see Forgiven going like trash in that lane. Like he can potentially dumpster it because he's actually that good. But unfortunately, AD carry sucks. The role sucks. So, you know.
Yeah, I mean, Forgiven has been on some like
Mediocre.
pretty bad rosters. He's been
Awful.
playing since 2013. Like
Terrible.
he used to be playing with players like Young Buck, who was like stuck in
Oh
D2.
no.
We had Amazing, who was good, I would say. Cowtard, Cowtard was
Yeah.
his mid laner,
Have you ever
and he
heard?
had Unlimited as
No,
his
I was like,
support.
people are like, I'm sorry, who are any of these people? Like, they're like, I've seen Amazing complain on Twitter. Yeah, like most people might not even remember that TSM picked up Amazing a long time ago, and that boosted his ego a lot. And then he went to Origin, and he was actually good. So then he could actually talk the talk and walk the walk. And now
Yeah.
I don't even know what he does. Didn't he get signed to Schalke, even though they've got Memento,
He
who's a
got
good
signed to
joke?
Schalke.
Yeah,
He played for like a bit of a split, and then this split he's not playing anymore as
who
the
knows?
main jungler.
Not very good is the problem.
Amazing is a very linear player. I think he has good points, but he's not definitely not like a plug and play like Amazing
Yeah,
fits every team jungler. And he was probably the second best player on that team.
that's fair.
Uh,
The best team that
so
Forgiven has had would be the H2K lineup with Odoamne, Yankos, Ryu, and
Ryu
Vander,
and Vander,
which
yeah.
they had actually relatively good success. They only
World semis.
yeah they got to World Semis as an EU team. They finished third, fourth against Samsung, which was not the year Samsung won, but it was the year where they got into the finals and lost because Ruler was like this close from inting, and then he did.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, the Trundle, which
but it was still a very strong Samsung team, and that same exact team won the Worlds the next year. So
so it
Forgiven did not look out of his element
yeah,
in that series, in my
and
opinion.
that
So
team was relatively solid. I mean, their weak points ended up being Ryu seemed a bit washed, good but washed,
yeah, this
and
was peak Crown.
yeah, and Yankos wasn't the Yankos that you see now. So, and then I
Yeah, this
mean,
was back when people still called Yankos a choker.
yeah,
Like the Yankos of now is a lot better than back then.
totally. So I mean, I can happily. I mean, I'm ready to move on because I've happily spilled all my guts out about how much I love Forgiven. I'm so
Yeah,
excited for him to come back. I hope he doesn't go to Rogue, but if he does, I
if he
hope that
does, I hope they
Rogue
do well.
move Vander up, bring in Larson.
Yeah,
Maybe their team looks a lot better, but oh my god,
it's
please,
possible.
please get a good
Sometimes just
team.
a swap or two is enough.
Please get a good team.
The last thing I wanted to put for Forgiven is like he also is the kind of guy who also owns up to the fact that he like he is the kind of guy who like pushes his team hard. He's the type who's very honest, very blunt, and he also like has this kind of confidence in himself that won't ever be shaken. Like he knows he thinks he's the best AD
He
carry in the world,
knows that he's
and
great, which is
yeah,
what great
and
players do.
that's not something you get from like players. Like you'll hear like Double say like I'm the greatest AD carry or whatever as lip service for an interview. But like as much as I love Double, like I know he knows that if he's up against like Uzi, for example, he's going to be like a little shook
Yeah.
personally.
Oh, 100%.
So
And then Forgiven, maybe it's an ignorance that's inside of him, but it's certainly a confidence and as much as it is an ignorance where he's like, yeah, dude, he's like,
yeah,
I don't Uzi, that guy has never won a world championship, and neither have I, so we might as well be the same person. Except I'm
exactly.
better and
I mean, the only other thing I wanted to give for Forgiven is also his level of performance has been so solid for so long. Like this man is just a world class talent. Like he he literally just takes long breaks. He comes back and he just comes to kick everyone's ass.
yeah,
Then he goes back into hiding. He goes play CS:GO for a month, gets Global Elite, which is their challenger, in like a month or something. Like this man has no lack of talent. He has the work ethic, the talent. Honestly, I think he just needs the team around him and maybe to mature a little bit more. But I think might be his year
it
as
could
long as
be
he's not on
this year,
a
next
bad
year.
rogue.
We could see this could be Forgiven could win something, and this list could be wrong. And I'm praying at best. I'm hoping.
Yeah, I'm hoping he's not on this list next year.
But I hope so. But hey, there's only one person that that we've managed to put above Forgiven after all of that, like blushing and being like, Forgiven, oh please like our show, like my tweet and retweet it, please. And it is a legacy player. And the only reason that we can't put Forgiven above him is because it is the only player, at least in our opinion, that is better. Well, maybe not better than Forgiven himself, but he is. But like, not Forgiven isn't second here. so I guess saying the only player in context of the list that is better than Forgiven at AD carry. Wei Zhao, the World Elite Chinese AD carry that reinvented that is arguably the father of the role of AD carry, how you play AD
Feels
carry.
like he just invented the role at that point.
It's like, here's how you play Ezreal and also every other AD carry in the game, by the way. This is what Riot wanted, and Riot were like, oh yeah, totally, thank you, man. That's exactly you were the one that solved the fucking Pandora's puzzle. Not Pandora's, you know what I mean. The Da Vinci Code, you solved it, dude.
Oh.
Thank you for thank you for figuring out.
You don't solve Pandora's
box. You open it. You know what I mean. You solved the unsolvable puzzle. Riot Games said, and he's like, no, actually, I just kind of, this is just what you're supposed to do. This is the most efficient way to play the role, and it's still how it's played today. And that was in 2012, and it's been 7 years. Now, granted, this guy did actually have a very good team around him. There's arguable caveats towards, how is this guy going to be on this list? Because this is the Team World Elite that won. This is the one that had a Messiah on, which just for my money is one of the best mid laners ever. I'm a big fan of Twisted Fate, so it's kind of bit biased, but I do think Messiah is insane. And between those two players alone, they've got more than enough star power, and they won 8 tournament, or was it 6? I think it was 6 tournaments.
6, 7, or 8. Like, it was like an insane number. It was 8.
They won 6 tournaments in a row. With not like lacking tournaments either. Granted, none of these were, none of this was this was before the LPL was actually formed. This was they were still on circuit, but this was after Worlds, right? Or before?
Right after Worlds, they won every tournament they attended for like 5 months straight.
Right after. They were beating domestic teams like IG. Granted, this is not the IG but they were beating domestic teams. Then they were going, KT Arrows, bring it on, 3-0ing them. Then they go to IPL 5, which is one of the best tournaments we've seen in terms of international talent. This had Peak Fnatic with Peak Fnatic. The Fnatic at the time, Peak Fnatic with Xpeke and Soaz and Yellow Star.
Was Reckless on the team at that? That's what I'm wondering.
I don't think so, or maybe, but why can't I remember his name? Cyanide was the jungler.
It had TPA, the world champions, off their win.
CLG Europe, Moscow 5, CLG Prime, which was NA's best team at the time, and this was the CLG Prime.
Some people might forget in these days.
CLG Prime back then was actually beating Korean teams fairly well, but that's because they had. I don't think maybe Loco Doco wasn't on the team at the time, but I think he just came off the team, but they had like more than enough. They got a little bit of Korean boost of infrastructure. In that way.
He was on the team. He was the support double.
He was playing double in this.
That's why.
Was did everyone's favorite bot lane, Double Lift and Loco Doco, the best of friends. No beef at all.
For life.
Pre beef, where they were the best bot lane in the world. And World Elite beat everyone.
There was also a Zubu Blaze too.
Actually, who else have we got? Because this was stacked. This was
stacked. This was a Zubu Blaze with Flame Helios, Ambition, Captain Jack, Lustboy. Team Solo Mid with Dyrus, Odd One, Reggie, Chaox X Special.
The best TSM, by the way.
CLG EU with their old roster. Moscow 5. Oh, we forgot to mention them.
Did we? I swear I mentioned M5.
Peak Moscow 5. Oh, you said M5. Yeah, my bad. I had a brain fart. Yeah, Peak M5, Fnatic, like there was just so many amazing teams here.
And I mean, there was some bad ones. I mean, Curse Europe made it through, and no one in Curse Europe is relevant, especially not you, Patoy. If you somehow stumble upon this video, I want you to know that you were never that good at League of Legends.
He's not rejoining the Dignitas reunion party.
Sorry, brother. Just a little bit of, just on the one chance that somehow Patoy finds this video. Like, I don't even dislike him that much. I just want something like a shred of like, yeah, dude, you're garbage.
I mean, he's like the first NA player to be imported to EU,
That's
so
true.
like there's that.
There's only a handful as well because on top of, oh no, this ruins my narrative. I
What?
have a narrative. The only thing that NA's ever imported or exported was Europeans because Amazing went back to EU after being an NA
Right.
player and he was a European. And there was
Mm-hmm.
somebody else. What was the other EU player that went to NA and then just went back to EU?
Niski went
Niski.
back after MV.
Like they import the Europeans and then the Europeans go, oh wait, hang on, forbidden, Febby as well.
Yeah, Febby.
Goddamn. See now, but okay, now I do hate you, Patoy. Now you've ruined my narrative.
Can you imagine Batoy being the guy who ruins that narrative?
Oh my god.
Oh,
you
my lord.
worthless AD carry, you worthless support player. Honestly, no wonder Cutie Pie hated playing with you. And then, so much so that he actually decided to lane with Kiwi Kid. Like, he was like, that guy up in the top lane. Yeah, he'll do. He might as well. I don't care how bad he is. Get this loser out of my lane. I don't.
Right,
I don't mean that.
But anyways, as much as it's interesting to flame Patoy, let's go back to Wei Xiao. I mean, so the reason why we can't count IPL 5, although it's such a stacked tournament, is because with our criteria, it has to be in the right era of like tournaments. So IPL 5 was like, I would say it's like the World Championship of the circuit era. Like this was a huge tournament for sure, and they did win it in a really amazing fashion. But
it wasn't
in the LCS era.
I was gonna say the irony is that it wasn't actually Riot like backed or endorsed. If it actually was, then we could have. But it was actually hosted by IGN. So
IGN used to do a pro league. That's what IPL stands for. If you guys didn't know, so they no longer do them. Kind of thankfully, but I do miss tournaments, like hype tournaments like that one. In the regular season afterward, he still played amazing. Like Wei Xiao, as his teammates started falling off, as he like lost Clear Love or like other players just started like phoning it in a bit, he still played at a really high level for a very long time. He was still top 2, top 3 AD carries in the region, pretty much undeniably up until he retired, I would say. Just from watching 2013, 2014 LPL, but there was still, and like everyone looks up to him. Like if you ask Uzi, if you ask Name from back then, you ask any of the great AD carries of that era, I'm fairly certain even the ones from like NA, like Double F, will probably say like, I looked up to Wei Xiao when I was learning AD carry, because he just taught all the pro players how to play, not just the scrubs like us. Like the way we play AD carry today, the way like we put all those resources down there, like it's pretty much pioneered by him as one player, and that's pretty insane. Like there aren't a lot of other roles you could say that are still defined to this day by that one player's play style and skill.
I think the only person that comes to mind in that idea is Diamond Prox with jungling.
Diamond with jungle. But the thing is, like, we don't jungle as similar. Oh, we still do. The problem is jungle has changed so much. Right, reworks jungle every season. So, unfortunately, if the jungle was similar to what it was back then, I would definitely have Diamond up there too. But Diamond got screwed over by Riot.
Yeah, I can't believe Riot Games didn't want Diamond Prox on our list. He's like, oh, no. Honorable mention.
It's a conspiracy.
At the very least.
Yeah.
Fantastic player.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so I mean, there's not that much to say about Wei Xiao being at number 1 outside of, like, it's somebody that completely defines a role. You look at the best AD carries now. Again, you can sit there and go, oh, well, I think Uzi's fantastic. Oh, I think that Deft is fantastic. Oh, I think that Reckless is really good. Oh, never mind. Like, all these players, they'll all probably agree. I would undoubtedly think that they'd all agree. If you, at least, maybe they'd forget, to be fair. But if you do go, oh, well, what do you think about Wei Xiao? They'd be like, oh, just best AD carry there's ever been. Because the role hasn't changed to such a degree where what he was doing back then wasn't nuts, and the champions might be a bit different, and the way that some champions interact is a bit different, but perfect in the lane, somehow even better than perfect at team fighting. Like, insane things that he would be able to do with as we said, Forgiven being this good at being like the way that he weaves in team fights and being able to know what's happening. Wei Xiao is the person that is better than that, and on top of that, invented that. Forgiven is only as good as he is because he clearly has seen Wei Zhao play. It's kind of a similar thing, except Wei Zhao was on a team that was doing things. It just kind of turned out that his team didn't make it into the LCS era at the time, and therefore when they went to any worlds,
they played a little bit in the era. Like they played a few LPLs, but they just got like third or fourth, and they weren't as strong as they used to be.
This
because they lost some of their players too.
As the irony is
to EDG.
Unfortunate. Oh god. Unfortunately, they didn't manage. They weren't around for Season 2 Worlds, I don't think, because they came out right after. Or maybe they were in Season 2 Worlds. I don't think they were, right?
They were in Season 2 Worlds. They were in the legendary set against CLG EU.
Oh, they were. Oh.
But the reason why I think that isn't a huge knock against them was, first of all, that series. If you ever watch that series, there were so many technical issues, and that series could have gone literally either way. 2-0, 2-1, 1-2, what have you, because they had to keep remaking the game thanks to all the bugs. So that's why we call it the best of 5, best of 3 set, and why Silver Scrapes was played for like 3 hours on that day.
2.5 hour break in between game, like 3 hours.
And keeping in mind that version of World League had only been around for a few months before they had formed the team for a few months, and then they went to Worlds. And I remember the caster saying that. I was like, what are they doing at the World Championship? And I was like,
just turns out their players are fantastic.
Yeah, so they definitely legends of the game. It's a shame he wasn't here near the modern era, but I guess his mystique and his prowess and like the influence he had wouldn't have made sense in the modern era, because it had to have been more of a legacy player era to have that much impact. So he's kind of in that catch-22 where I wish he was still playing at that level today and still playing, but I mean, he is the new coach for World Elite. He's coming back, so he maybe we'll see a new legend for World Elite.
Hopefully he can.
Hopefully, World Elite's a little sad sometimes.
Yeah, and well, as an org, they've had some like miracle runs outside of this, because they're Mystic is actually like a really good AD carry still, and I think what was it? I'm trying to remember the run they made at like one of the worlds where they like everyone was like, oh, they're just gonna lose, and then they made it into the main stage.
Yeah, they made it to semifinals of 2017 Worlds.
It was really good.
It was them and RNG were semifinals. Misfits almost beat SKT, and
that was a good world.
Samsung won their first Worlds. Like that Samsung Galaxy won their first Worlds. That was a great Worlds. I wish Misfits had gotten further, but it's still an amazing Worlds. World Elite was I think it was World Elite versus Fnatic, I believe.
I believe so, yeah. Classic rivalry.
Yeah.
IPL 5-2.
Yeah, IPL 5 rematch. But this version of World Elite and this Wei Zhao, he was just so great. I think he was captain, or he was at least one of the shot callers for the team as an AD carry. He's just a legend. I mean, we could gush about him forever, but I think it's hard to argue anyone else could like top his prowess as a player.
Yeah, agreed.
In our criteria,
yeah, as well, especially. But I mean, I definitely rank him as like one of the best AD carries. That Mount Rushmore again. There's his face. His face is here. Uzi's is here. Somebody. Reckless.
We can tease the rest for maybe a future episode. Reckless, maybe, who knows?
It's Reckless, Steelback, Genja,
Kjarnan.
Greatest AD carries ever. I mean.
Yeah, I mean, if you're like Kjarnan's girlfriend, you'll probably consider that a legitimate list.
Oh no.
Goodness.
EU Masters Hyanan, by the way. Dude's killing it in SK.
God, if she sees like the end of this video, we would get flamed to high heaven.
Flame me. Hyanan's girlfriend, hit me up on Twitter and flame me. I'm down for I'm cool with it. That'd be fun. I'm ready.
I'm glad you added in that last sentence, or else that would have been a little awkward.
Anyway.
All right. So here's our list. Number 5, Alex Ich from Moscow Fire and Gambit. 2012 to 2016, it was his best time. Flame, number 4, also 2013, 2012-ish to actually till now, because he's on Dawnwon right now.
Popping off still.
Doinby, number 3. He played from 2015 till now, and he's still peak Doinby. Like, you should go watch him sometime.
I'm sure you'll get to see him at
Forgiven.
Worlds, I think so.
I think so. 2, Forgiven. He played from 2013 or 14, and he's probably coming back now. He's in free agency, and we're very hyped to see what happens with him. We'll probably have a small discussion once he finally chooses his team and the roster forms up. And then number 1, Wei Xiao, World Elite, and 2012 until 2015, 2014-ish is our number 1.
Yeah. So if you disagree with this list, be sure to let me know in the comments on Twitter. Anywhere you can find me, I'll put up some places. Add me on Discord. Say, hey man, here's a 200-word paragraph. Here's a 200 paragraph essay on why reckless.
Oh, like a 200-word paragraph sounds
200
long.
Is a 2,000-word essay. Look, a lot of words. The max character cap on goddamn Discord is 2,000 anyway. Write out the maximum amount of words you can put down on a piece of paper and mail it to me on why Reckless is a good AD carry so I can wipe my ass with it. Because fuck him. He's garbage. Thank you for watching.